I'm here today with one of the most influential people in the tackle trade, David Preston. David, I want to start right at the beginning of your angling journey. How did it start for you?
Literally with a bent pin.
Right.
When I was 6. I was at Lake Bella, and I caught this fish. I'd been trying all day with a bent pin and a worm, and I caught this fish, this perch, of course. And there were some people wandering by, and I wanted to impress them with I caught these all the time, and they asked me about it, and I said, yeah, I catch lots of these, and I put it back. And when I went back to my parents and told them I caught these fish, they just didn't believe me. So that was a bit of a kick in the teeth, wasn't it?
It is. So your parents weren't anglers then? You sort of,
No.
It was your own love of fishing that got you into it?
Yeah. And then I didn't really take it up properly until I was about something like 16. My brother-in-law was a really keen angler, and he introduced me to fishing for tench, and that was something else. It was so good to look at a pool with the lilies, and there's the water, and it's complete flat sort of skin to another world, and you don't know what goes on underneath, and suddenly your float goes down, and then you've got something on the end, and you find out what it is. I mean, that's what fishing is really about. It's the unknown coming out.
It's awesome, isn't it? It's similar to my sort of background in the sport, that is. It's just that quest to find out, what's under the water and how to catch it, really.
Yeah.
In terms of, growing up then, was it the Shropshire area you grew up in?
Yeah, Newport, Shropshire. And we're very lucky around it, as it turned out, because when I was fishing, there was hardly any carp about anywhere.
Right.
But it became better and better because there was somebody who was taking the original leany fish from a place called Isle Pool,
right,
near Shrewsbury, and putting them in all the lakes around here, every single carp puddle. This guy, I've forgotten his name now, but he was spreading them around. So we've got some of the best carp fishing in the country around here.
Well, it says a lot that you grew up around here and you've come back and you've lived here all your life pretty much then.
Yeah.
It's a nice part of the world. So tell me, career-wise then, Preston Innovations-wise, how did that all start?
Well, I was an interesting youth. I've now found out I've got all these sort of different things like a bit of ADD, a bit of ADHD, a bit of Asperger's, all just little bits, face blindness and all sorts. And because of that, I didn't realise any of this, only found these things out very recently. I found things a little bit difficult. And so I used to go carp fishing. So when I was in my early 20s, I was carp fishing, and that's all I did.
Yeah.
And so I really literally hadn't got enough to buy enough food for myself. So that's all I did. And I worked out that as I was carp fishing, that the reason why I like carp fishing is the intense focus. And that took my mind off everything else that was shit in my life. So I just focused on the carp fishing. And then I thought, because I was so hungry, I thought, why don't I concentrate on something else? If it's to focus on something that makes me feel better, why don't I focus on something else that actually got the side benefits of having a bit of money so that I could actually eat? And so I went along with that line of thought, and I thought, well, why don't I just make the focus making money? Just, be done with it and just be pure about it and just go for that. And then you got everything. You've got the focus and you've got the money as well. So then I worked out that what you had to do to make money was to actually learn how to focus the mind completely. It's a bit philosophical, this, but it worked. It worked, absolutely worked. So I sort of studied how the mind worked for a couple of years, and then I set my goals, and my goal was to make £1 million in 4 years. And I told everybody, and of course they laughed their socks off at me. And
so how old would you be at this point?
Probably about 23, 24. And people say, well, yeah, but how did you make your money? And they're not really listening, because that's how I made the money, by resetting how I thought about things and refocusing on making money.
Yes.
How you make the money in terms of like what was your first product is a bit irrelevant. But anyway, so the first product was adjustable bed chair legs that you could actually put onto your £5 giveaway B&Q bed chair that everybody was using, all the carp anglers were using. And so I started making those. I got a £40 a week grant off Maggie Thatcher and all this sort of stuff. And I started making those, and then people started coming to me and saying, why don't you make such and such a thing? So I'd make adjustable legs that went onto seat boxes. That was Duncan Biddle's idea from Tackle and Gun Shop in Telford. And so they sold really well. And then someone else would come and say, well, why don't you make a pole crook? So I'd work out how to make a pole crook and make a pole crook and sold it, and so on. Phil Briscoe, he won't remember this, he worked at Leader, and he phoned me up and said that I want to sell those things through Leader, the seat box legs, seat box legs. And we nearly got there, but then he said I've got to stop advertising, because I was advertising, it was called direct mail then, online if you like, before online. And so I would actually get some money that would pay for the advertising. But he said I couldn't do that anymore. So I said, well, how am I going to advertise them then? And he said, well, you just can't. And so I didn't do it. So thanks to Phil, I actually had to build the business up. So I just kept on designing things, making things, unibung, PTFE bushes, coloured elastic, all that sort of stuff, and built it up as I went along.
You say obviously.
Oh, and I didn't reach $1 million in 4 years. I reached 2 million in 5 years. Oh. So I failed.
Oh, that's still pretty awesome. So by the time you're 30 then, you made 2 million quid.
Oh, yeah. I made, a lot.
Awesome. You say, quite nonchalantly, oh, I saw this, I made it. You must have been good with your hands, or had a knack for innovation, as the name suggests.
Yeah, I'm good at inventing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good at working out how to make things and
Did
what
you know
people
you
want.
were good before you started doing it, or was it something that you learnt as you went on?
Didn't think about it. I mean, so once I'd sort of reprogrammed my brain to focus on making money, I tried all different things. I invented all sorts of different things, but I hadn't got enough money to actually make them. So everything I made had to be possible by using mass-produced products you could buy in bulk that were really cheap.
Yeah.
So unibungs, which made a lot of money, they were made out of in a mastic tube. You've got that little cone on the end.
Oh, right,
so I made something myself, using a Stanley knife blade and a block of metal and all this sort of stuff, how to chop the cone out of the mastic tube end. So you could buy those, you could buy 20,000 at 0.6p each, you see, so that worked. But I couldn't start all the other things because I hadn't got enough money.
Oh, yeah. So it was almost an economy of scale then, do the cheap things first, make the money and then grow.
Yeah. So I couldn't invest in injection moulding tools and all that sort of stuff. So I had to do it that way, and I just found I could do it.
That's really interesting. So you've made 2 million quid. You're under 30. Was it just you at that point, or had you got a team with you?
By that time I got a couple of people working for me, and the drive was for me to grow the business as quick as I could, so that I could get out to doing the things I was shit at. Because I was really bad at a lot of things, like bookkeeping and all sorts of stuff. Answering phones, talking to people, anything like that, I was rubbish at. I was good at innovating and the business side of things and having the focus which way to go.
One of the legendary teams in the tackle trade over the years has been yourself and Ricky Teal. Was Ricky on board at that point?
I can't remember when he came along, to be honest, but it was fairly early on. And it was a really good team, because he was really good at the things that I was particularly shit at.
Yeah.
And I was good at things that he wasn't particularly good at.
Yeah.
And it did work really, really, really well. He was responsible for a lot of the growth of Preston Innovations.
You mentioned obviously this state of mind, the attitude, the 100% focus on making money. At this point, obviously, you've made what you probably would have considered at the outset to be an awful lot of money.
Oh, ridiculous amount, yeah.
Did the fishing start to come back, or did you want to just make more and grow things even more?
Did the fishing come back?
Yeah.
Basically, I was totally obsessed with carp fishing, and then I became totally obsessed with the goal of making money. And so there wasn't room in my mind for going fishing.
Yeah.
it was only years later when I didn't need to do much work. I mean, basically, I don't know, I'm not very good at the timeline stuff,
Yeah.
but the last quite a few years, from about 35 onwards, if I had to guess, I did very little hands-on work. So
Yeah.
I got a really good team around me who could work out what the market wanted and to create those things that the market wanted. What I did is I made sure that everything was staying on the right lines.
Yes.
Because you can go off all over the place if you're not careful.
Yeah.
You can do too many things. It dissipates the brand image. So I'm very aware of brand images and how you don't pollute them with other brands or other forms of products that could mess it up. So Preston Innovations is match fishing. Coram is for general angling. It was Peter Drennan that got that at the time.
Yeah.
But we went for that, and we sort of stole that off him, I think. Don't mean to say that in a competitive way. Sorry, Peter. And then we went into Sonu baits, so it was a bait side, and then Avid. We went into Avid because I've always been a carp angler.
Yeah.
So did I go fishing? At some point I started going fishing probably about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's still there. You're a fisherman or you're not a fisherman. If you're a fisherman, you're always a fisherman.
Yeah. But you'd seen that, you've had that desire to diversify the business and for the reasons you've explained, that's really interesting. I mean, one thing that struck me that Preston, growing up in match fishing, one thing that struck me that Preston did better than everybody else and before everybody else was bringing top caliber sponsored anglers, and they really, from what I could see, were used as the face of things. Was that something that you were behind? Were you the first one to really sort of push sponsorship in that way?
I don't know what the first one to push sponsorship within Preston Innovations, you mean?
No,
or just generally?
Just within sort of match fishing, quite specifically, it struck me that you had a hunger to get the best anglers on board, who were winning, who were current, and that really drove the brand forward.
Well, anything that made Preston Innovations more Preston Innovations, then we do. That was the whole thing, to grow the brand.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Ricky was really good at communicating with anglers. And with the sales, our sales agents and all the rest of it. He got his ear to the ground. He's a match angler. Could have been a world-class match angler, but Preston Innovations took over from that, and so he could actually understand what was going on. I was further and further removed, where in the end I was probably doing about half an hour a week, and that's all I needed to do because the team was so good. You got people there who could actually do the inventing and do the innovating.
Yeah.
All I had to do is make sure it was staying on the right course.
So when the opportunity came along to sell Preston Innovations for probably more money than you ever dreamed possible when you started, it was
Absolutely.
obviously a healthy option.
Yeah, well, I really felt very protective, which is a bit patronising of all the people I had with me. It was a fantastic team. And so I hadn't sold it before, but then I realised that actually their lives were a bit more important than me. So why not sell? I mean, it was only ever set up to make money in the first place.
Yeah.
So I'm not emotionally tied to it like a lot of people are. A lot of people have businesses, self-made people. They are emotionally attached to something that the business gives them, like power, or being flash and driving fast cars and be able to spout forth endlessly, listen to their own voices, and everyone has to listen to them. I'm just not like that. I don't even like being the centre of attention. So none of that was interesting. It was really quite clean. I set it up to make money. Why not sell it? I'm still young. I'll get on with something else. I don't know what, but once you get rid of something, another door opens for you. So that's what I did.
So that was 2014, was it? When
Yeah.
you sold it? And since then, obviously, a little bit of time to yourself, time to get fishing again. But this latest venture, you believe's even more exciting and with even more potential than Preston Innovations.
Well, Preston Innovations grew and grew and grew, and I don't know how many thousand product lines there were, but there's a lot of different products. And my natural tendency is to actually reduce things to the barest minimum, the simplest version. That's what one of my strengths is. So when I'm sort of going about my normal business, I'm just living my life. I'm always thinking about problems I can solve, because that's what innovators do. And I came up with this idea, and I experimented for a couple of years to try and work out whether it was possible, and it was. How could I not do it?
Yeah. When I first read about this new venture, I think it was Tackling Guns magazine, it said in there that you wanted to create a bait that was better, more sellable than maggots. That's a big, ambitious ask, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think I've done it. Maggots are one of the best baits ever. I think everyone will agree with that. But there's problems with them. There's less tackle shops where you can get them from now. You have to work out when you're going to go and buy them, because you can't keep them very easily. You want them fresh. So you've got to go and get them. You can't get them through the post unless you're willing to pay like £7 carriage or something, because they're live. If you don't look after them, you have problems with them, flies, and escapees, and the wife not liking them in the fridge, etc., etc. If you're going on holiday, there's problems. There's a lot of problems with maggots, but absolutely fantastic bait, but there's problems. So what I wanted was a maggot that doesn't crawl away and fly off and turn to stink. Something that you can use it like maggots. So one of the main things is they're cheap enough to throw in. So if you go fishing with maggots, in the simplest form, you put one on the hook and you throw some out to attract the fish and keep them busy. That's simple stuff. There isn't really anything else out there that you can do that with. Maybe sweet corn, but that comes in weird tins with cart around loads of weight and they're messy and everything. So I came up with this bait, two-in-one bait, feeds and hooks, and it does everything that the maggot should do, but it hasn't got any of this, the downside. So you can put a bag of them in your bag in the shed and forget about them. You can turn up 3 months later, and there you are, it's ready to fish. It's all the same. Cheap enough to throw in some, stick one on the hook, and you're away.
It's really interesting. I mean, over the years working at Match Fishing magazine, and as an angler myself, I've seen a lot of different bait brands launch and come and go, and it strikes me a lot of the time there's an element of gimmickry in what they're doing, because they have multiple colours, multiple flavours, multiple sizes. What you've launched with Fjuka is one flavour in essence, a few different colours, yes, and essentially two products.
Yeah, one size. Well, two sizes, I suppose.
I suppose the reason for that, though, is the bait's so adaptable. You can make it, in effect, any size, can't you?
Yeah, so you don't have to, if you're a shop, you don't have to stock all the different sizes and the different flavours, different colours. If you're an angler, you don't have to buy all these different boxes of things, which some of them are quite expensive. If you want fluorescent colours, you've got to get the really rock hard ones, and therefore you've got to drill them and band them and all the rest of it. These you can just hook. So it's very, very simple. It's one flavour, because it isn't even a flavour. It's not designed as a flavour. Flavours are designed primarily to catch anglers, not fish. So they got something. The manufacturer's got something to talk about. The so-called flavour with this sensate is something that is designed to attract the fish and make them want to eat it. So there's no reason for me to do different flavours. It's just one, and it's called sensate.
I know you probably won't be able to tell me too much into this, because obviously it's an ongoing project and it's quite an exciting one at that. What was the process then behind it? How did you come up with this product? How did I come up with the process? I just invent things as I go along. I work out, find out what the problem is, yeah,
and solve it. It just takes me where it takes me.
Yeah.
It's not made like any other bait.
Yeah, totally unique.
Yeah, totally unique.
The thing I like about it as well is it's very cheap, isn't it? $1.99 makes it about probably the cheapest bait item in a tackle shop, other than maybe half a pint of maggots, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point of the 2-in-1 bait, is it's cheap enough to feed. So you can use it like maggots. Because you could make, in a way, you could say that is a hook bait, and therefore 200 grams is worth, well, it depends on which hook bait it is, but I mean, it could be worth anywhere between £10 and £30 just for one bag, but it's £1.99 because it's a feed. It's got to be cheap to be able to use it as a feed.
What's interesting as well, just going back to something you said earlier about, obviously when you were at Preston Innovations, you like the separate brands for the different niches of angling, the Corum for the specimen side of it, obviously Avid for carp fishing, Preston Innovations match fishing. What you've got with Fjuka though is a bait that appeals to match anglers, pleasure anglers and specimen anglers. So this really encompasses all groups. I know that all 3 of those groups have had some success on it as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've been trying this for a year and a half now, and we've got match anglers who are winning on silvers and carp in the winter using this stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's maggots, isn't it? I mean, maggots, everybody uses maggots. Match anglers use maggots, the average angler uses maggots, everybody uses them. Carp anglers use maggots.
It is the basic bait that can replace maggots.
Absolutely.
So I've got to ask you, obviously you talked before about the focus within the business sort of thing, and your own fishing suffering. With the ongoing Fjuka project, will you be doing a bit more fishing yourself, or is it going to be another intense period?
There's two things to say to that. One, I'll go fishing more because I like trying them out. There's a reason to go fishing, and it is good fun. I mean, I've just caught patch from Ashmead, which is a favourite carp that people want to catch. And what I did, I soaked the boilies in the sensate. It's not for sale. Sensate's not for sale, except on the bait.
Yeah.
But obviously, I've got it. So I soaked the boilies in, and I caught this fish. So I'm going fishing more now, and I'm really enjoying it.
And can we expect to see more products added to the range, or do you think for now we're going to be going with what?
Well, the whole idea is keep it simple. So there's only one size if you like, because you can make any size out of it you want. There's only one shape. There's only one flavour. You just got to keep it nice and simple. Because you go into a tackle shop now, and I'm partly responsible for this, what I'm about to say. You go into a tackle shop now, and it is really confusing. Because not only have you got all this incredible array of different hooks to nylon, hair rigs, bands, spikes, different sizes, different patterns of hooks, different lines it's tied to, different tools to do everything. You've got all this complication. It's a guarantee to put people off fishing. It's just too complex. So, and I'm partly responsible for that with Preston Innovations. And now I'm going completely opposite. I'm trying to simplify everything so it's easy for people to go fishing.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I suppose, in essence, and I know a big part of the philosophy behind the bait, that in turn will bring more people into it, because the simpler it is, the more accessible it is.
Absolutely.
I've fished with a bait myself, caught plenty of fish on it. Just tell me about some of the catches you've heard of, or your consultants have had while using it.
I can't really. I've not got that sort of brain to be able to remember different things and pluck them out of the back of my brain from beyond. All I can tell you is that people do go and fish with it, and they do catch a lot of fish.
As you know, I always end these interviews with a particularly contentious question, so apologies in advance if this one stumps you out, but obviously you've been in the tackle trade an awful long time. You've been responsible yourself for some incredible pieces of tackle, some real innovation, and you've seen your competitors bring out items of tackle that have been very innovative as well. My question, David, is what single product in all your time in the tackle trade is the most innovative? What's the most different?
Fjuka bait. It's a new category. There's nothing like it in the world.
David Preston, thank you very much. Pleasure talking to you.
Should you have a pint now then?
Yeah,
Or a stiff whiskey.